was
party.
uploading this avatar because I feel it's going to be topical tonight. Because oddly enough, tonight, hi, welcome to the Gospel of Comics, everyone. Tonight, I think we're going to talk about a fair amount of comic stuff tonight.
We are. I mean, we would have opened with the big one, right?
You mean with the Spooder Man?
We should open with Spiderman because I mean,
Spooder Man.
Spiderman, which may be a Pyrrhic victory for the MCU and a total victory for Sony.
And wildly undeserved. Um,
Now
I
that's
I think this is such we're gonna have a very interesting time because I based on what you were saying and then I have watched it, I believe we are in some ways going to be diametrically opposed, and that's surprising.
so. First things first, I want to talk about
Yeah.
the 800-pound gorilla in the room. All the money this movie's going to make, the ludicrous amounts of money this movie's going
Well,
to make.
well, let's with that in mind, let's mention this. Um, well, listeners, viewers, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are. The other day, Karasov, Mr. Larry, met with his friend Matt Krotz, and they had a bit of a talk about the themes and concepts of the Nolan Odyssey.
Yes,
And while you may wonder, like, what does that have to do with any of this? The bots and the shills are out in force trying to sell everyone on the idea that the Odyssey is not a mixed bag of mixed nuts, and that it is in fact a genius tour de force worthy of an Oscar.
I mean it's a tour de farce.
It is that. Um, Regardless of whatever particular comic booky opinions Larry and I have, or filmic opinions, or what have you, it goes without saying, Spider-Man is going to destroy the Odyssey in terms of sales.
It is absolutely
just
because
absolutely.
it has broader cultural appeal than a Nolan movie, which has a lot of cultural
And
appeal.
and broader cultural appeal than the Odyssey as a object. While lots
I
of
don't
people may
know. I don't know. I think
While lots of people may have instantaneously become Odyssey experts because they went to Wikipedia, right? And the Odyssey is not like unknown. I Very few people have actually like read the Iliad. Most people just know the big horse, right?
I mean
But
I read both in high school and in college.
right, but like everybody has read Spider-Man. Everybody has
Oh
a
yeah,
touchstone in Spider-Man.
Spider-Man was ranked one of the top counterculture icons of the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about the money problem for Marvel.
Yeah.
There is a very strong possibility once the weekend is fully closed out, this movie will have made more money than Endgame did in its opening weekend.
Right.
Without all the build-up, without all the we've killed off half the toys. How are we bringing the toys back from the dead? None of that. It's just they waited 5 years and then they gave Tom Holland some more leverage because he's clearly a big celebrity, and now he's going to be able to argue he's a
Well,
bigger celebrity because he's been a star in 4 of the top grossing movies of all time, not adjusted for inflation.
also, I was being very base and flippant, but somebody asked a question. It was a reasonable question that I gave the most dour mercenary answer to. Somebody
Mhm.
didn't like Zendaya and wanted to know why she keeps getting work when he's not impressed with her presence as Mary Jane, because as an actress, regardless of the specific role, she doesn't have a great deal of range. She might be good one day. She's not good today,
I think
right?
this was her best role in the Spider-Man series of movies.
Sure,
This movie.
because she's getting used to the character. She's had enough time to know the ins and outs of a Mary Jane.
Well, also this
But
script gave her comfort zone as an actress.
right, she had things to work with. But what I said in response to that question was that she was also getting work because she is banging slash married to the star.
Mhm.
She's being carried by Holland.
She also is a massive influencer that has like 3 million
Right.
followers, and
But I'm just saying, Tom Holland has some weight to throw around, because if he decides to walk from Spider-Man, not only does that hurt the brand for Sony and Disney, right? But he's well within his argument to say, "And I'm taking my wife with me," and they'd be like, "Oh shit, we could maybe make this without one star. We can't make it without both."
But with Avengers Doomsday coming up,
Yeah,
which spent way more money being produced than this Spider-Man movie, like probably twice as much money to make it, and if it doesn't open as strong as this Spider-Man movie, that'll be like a mass hanging incident for executives. They're going to fire a whole lot of people if Doomsday can't do at least as well as this movie. Don't you think?
I do think. I also think that the nature of the failing is very obvious. Now, the common chestnut, the common conversation, is to use the phase system that Marvel has presented, where
Which
it's like,
has never worked.
yeah, where this phase or that phase was the phase that did all the fail. But no, this goes all the way back to formula, to the very beginning. So if we look at Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor, the first set of those films, they were first and foremost standalone films, right? And when it comes to this idea of interconnected world building, right, it was not obvious. It was very subtle. So, for instance,
it was obvious if you read comic books.
Yeah, if you read comic books. But what I mean is that the one guy who would end up being Agent Coulson, that's it. Agent Coulson was just a guy who appeared in the background across several movies. And all that indicated was that it was a shared universe, not that it was part of a wider world, right? When Nick Fury would show up, he'd show up at the end of a movie as a mysterious presence, right? The world building was given the time to establish itself, right? And you can see, kind of in a Bethesda model, what this should look like. You have your spread out, disparate movies. They all come together to an end game like event, and then they spread out again.
That's what they should have done.
That's what they should have done. What they did instead is they increased the amount of interconnected world building. We've talked about this before. People have commented on this before. The idea of having to do homework to watch the new property.
And I think that's somewhat BS. I think the problem is the multiverse saga was a terrible idea, and they didn't know how to end it other than, hey, let's do Hickman's Secret Wars.
But that's the thing. I'm never going to be on board with the multiverse is a bad idea innately, universally, because we've done multiverses before in other media and they were just fine, right?
Right, but I'm saying the multiverse saga, not the multiverse as a concept.
Right, the multiverse as they applied it was bad. But what was bad about it? Because everything was connected to everything else.
No, I think it was bad because there was no stakes in the background.
Well, that's a component of it. Because everything's connected to everything else, and then you have this presentment of the idea that there's an alternate to every other action that exists, stakes become devalued. And I've tried to explain this to people before. They not only misunderstood the idea that there's a difference between the physical force in physics of time and space, because time and space are different, but they also failed to understand that there's a difference between dimension and space, right? When you travel the multiverse, you're traveling other variations of this reality, but it is ultimately this reality. It's not other dimensions, and it's not other time frames. But the people who are making multiverse-based fiction are treating those three concepts interchangeably, and that is a net bad.
Yes. Yes. But they could honestly have said, hey, all these movies that have been the multiverse saga, these are all in variant Earths.
I mean, that's what they want to do. That's what they wanted to use it for. Some marketing mechanism was to give themselves a buffer and say, okay, anything that did good, that's main continuity. Anything that did bad, that was a variant. That was an accident. It's not real. But the problem is that they've underestimated their viewership. Even the normies are too genre savvy for that bullshit.
Yeah. But let's dig into the movie proper.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say the following things about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Holland actually acted and made me feel emotions.
Right.
And he was actually given things to make you act and feel emotions. There's some stuff that I'm putting a pin in for when we talk about the bad parts of the product, like how he handled Jean Grey and how he handled Punisher. Although, the fact that he and John Bernthal are good friends outside the movies and TV stuff, and he and Zendaya they're married. So if you're married, you're pretty good friends with people. That really enhanced all of their scenes together. Also, Zendaya was given basic romantic melodrama stuff to do as an actress. And so she was in her comfort zone in this movie, and she did a really good job. I felt things from Zendaya as MJ other than revulsion.
Right.
So she was good. Unfortunately, Ned didn't have anything to do, but they still put Ned in the movie.
We're never going to get the Chungus Goblin, okay?
I mean, I think we can get the Chungus Goblin.
I don't want Chungus Goblin. I want an actual Ned Leeds. Give me a variant, for the love of God.
No. He's been working on losing weight.
Or skip Ned Leeds entirely, go directly to Philip Masondale, for the love of God.
But no. The actor who plays Ned has been working hard on getting trim.
I don't want to be clear if that is true. I respect that. But I'm saying the character of Ned Leeds as presented in film, I don't want that character to be the Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
But with this in mind, let's address another good thing. Because as a person in his public persona, the guy who plays Bruce Banner has been nothing but a giant douche nozzle of late. He's been going out of his way to say a lot of stupid things. But as Banner, playing Banner, he did okay.
Yeah, he did okay. It's not, great, but he did what he needed to do.
Here's the funny part. It's a Banner that he should have been several movies ago. Because it's a Banner managing the Hulk rather than in synthesis with the Hulk. And one of the problems with the Endgame era, even though everybody loved Endgame, is I have never been a fan of Hulk synthesis. I prefer the Hulk adversarial relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. The actress who played Jean Grey was great. The only person from Stranger Things who ended up getting a solid starring role in something.
She didn't do bad with her material. That's why this is in the good part, because we have to be clear. We are not taking the actors and raking them over the coals for mistakes that were very clearly done in the writing room that they had nothing to do with.
What I've been reading rumors, and again, I haven't, verified any of these rumors. I have limited sources for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They said basically they were talking about a mind control villain, maybe Mr. Negative, and then Sadie's agent, brought her up. They were talking about the X-Men. They were like going, well, fuck it, let's put Jean Grey in this movie, which we're going to talk about when we get to the story proper part of the movie. Those are the only real actors, and I'm not saying this to be derogatory to any of the minor actors. They're just bit parts floating around. So there's not really a whole lot to comment on it. The hand ninjas were members of Jackie Chan's stunt crew. So this
As
was
a,
Jackie Chan fight choreography and stunt work, and that was really fucking good.
for instance, there was a gaping hole in the cast that nobody has commented on, actually. You know who hasn't cropped up in this movie and doesn't and probably should have?
Hmm.
Happy Hogan doesn't show up at all.
Well, Peter's no longer. Well, I mean, there's the mind wipe thing. We're gonna get to the mind wipe thing
Right.
when we talk about the story part.
I'm just saying he was in the one with the vulture. He was in No Way Home or Long Way Home. He was in No Way Home. And then in this one, he's just conspicuously absent. Now, it's true
Well,
that the
Peter's now
connections
Peter's now
are,
technically a grown up.
yeah. I'm just saying, it's like, it would have been nice to nod that character interaction was present, even if it was another facet of these are the people that have moved out of my life.
That I can go along with that.
Just because one of the things we're talking about when you're talking about this kind of meta text is continuity.
Mhm.
This movie was a continuation of No Way Home, but also felt like it had very little contiguous connection to it.
So there are some continuity issues that we'll
Yeah.
get into a little bit more with the
Yeah.
story part. But what did you think about the Jackie Chan action sequences? With the hand ninjas.
We basically have two competing problems. And I know that we're going to talk about problems later, but you asked, so I'm telling you. The first is that individual panels are being replicated, because I know that there's a panel where Spidey fights the hand.
Yeah, but I'm more interested in the big fight scene.
But the other thing is that, quite frankly, I just don't think the hand fits. The hand is not a Spidey villain. The hand is a Daredevil villain. I could not be arsed to care. It was well done.
Yes.
It was well shot. But in terms of, did it get my blood up for an action scene? It's like, no, not really.
You see, I liked it because I thought it was a creative use of Spider-Man in the fight sequence. But now we're going to get to the problems, and the problems are, as it is usually on our show, they're located within the story.
Yeah.
And the story had a lot of good elements that made sense. You know, Peter, he's lost everything. He's like thrown himself into his work. How exactly he affords the apartment, all of his science equipment. You know, I have curiosity about. But we're just gonna you know, that's the side for a moment. You know, that's an issue. And he discovers that, you know, if you throw yourself into your work like that, you kind of have this darkness because your inner psychology is like saying, no, you need to take care of yourself. You need to represent yourself. You need to stand up for yourself. And it's all about going through that transition from youth to man to do that.
Well,
that is all very good.
Well, it is not a good plot beat. I do want to say that they actually did something that I approve of insofar as consequences of changes they made. So you and I have talked before about how inappropriate it is that Tony Stark became the stand-in for Uncle Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Stark became the cool Uncle Jesse in a leather jacket to Uncle Ben's more responsibility and restraint narrative. And part of that was, as people did not care for, the Iron Spider motif.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Obviously, if you watched your Spider films, you know that fell through, that he went back to the classic togs for a reason. I actually think that Spider-Man kind of low-key working for damage control, and implicitly that they might even be throwing him some bones as a thank you for helping us, Spider-Man, is a good expression of the negative influence of Tony Stark on Spider-Man's decision-making. He's not just throwing himself into the work like Tony used to. but he's throwing himself into the work with the worst people possible, because anyone paying attention knows from way back when with the Vulture that Damage Control was never good people, ever.
Well, we're gonna get there, but I mean the A plot about Peter having to sort his life
Yeah.
out, that was good material. It was really solid, good material. My problem was the Damage Control material, and I'm a huge nerd that loves the Damage Control comic books, but that's something that would really be more fit for a TV show than a movie. And Damage Control, they're a nice allegory. Let's be real in this movie. And they're also an implied, we're the secret police that are dealing with mutant stuff. And we're publicly helping the superheroes because there's a secret problem that we're fighting.
So the thing is, because this is actually relevant to what we were talking about before, we were touching on very tenuously previously. The problem is not that Damage Control is a bad idea, right? It's that in the range of concepts that we're kicking around, Damage Control needs more room to breathe to show the multifaceted nature of the problem, right?
My issue, and this is a personal thing, is it's about terrorism and ideology. And we're living in a world right now where people are, in fact, doing terrorism and terroristic threats against ICE. I don't feel like that's a good plot beat for a Spider-Man, but they were subtle about it, so I can't be too mad.
Here's the thing, though. We go back to phase one. We're introduced to the idea of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? And for multiple movies, S.H.I.E.L.D. is an unambiguous, chest-beating, America first, good guy image, right?
And then the second Captain America movie happens.
Second Captain America movie drops, so it's revealed, oh wait, it was Hydra all along. But it was played right, since Hydra was very, very, very subtle in it, right? And they've been trying to weave that through their material, right? If you recall from, what was it? Thunderbolts. The woman who wanted to run the Thunderbolts was a Hydra stooge. The implication should be, if you're paying attention, right, that Damage Control is a well-intentioned, well-meaning organization made up of good people, influenced and infiltrated by Hydra, right? And you could even make some other lore nods, like it has members of AIM in it because they acquired advanced idea mechanics after they defeated the Mandarin, right? The problem is, and this is what I was getting at, they don't give Damage Control enough time to really be explored. They just tell you that it's an ICE analog and they're bad guys.
Well, they don't. It's not blatant what they're telling you. It's subtle enough.
It's pretty blatant.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. You and I in the writing room for just a minute. They're saying we're gonna weave in the X-Men, right? Fine. And which ones we're gonna weave in? Well, we're gonna weave in kind of all of them, but we're not gonna be very committal. It's like, okay, cool. So you just refer to those first class films since you own Fox and they're yours now, right? And you say, it's like, oh yeah, Damage Control bought out the government contract for the Sentinel program, which has been in mothballs since the 1970s, 1960s, right? They've got all the designs for all the old shit, but the technology wasn't there, and it clearly didn't work. You want to know why? Go watch those movies. We don't care, right? Then when you say, oh man, this Damage Control thing is a bunch of bad guys and they've always been bad guys, it's like, well, they've always been on hand to capitalize on stealing bad guys' shit. Right?
Yeah. And then there's, of course, Jean Grey, which is kind of like their version of Flag Smasher from the show, which was a terrorist that we were supposed to feel sympathy for and a desire to be supportive of her terrorist organization? And the answer to that question is no. And John Walker did nothing wrong. Or we're
Right.
supposed to feel sympathy for Wanda for holding a whole goddamn town hostage while she was having a prolonged delusionary spell. No, this is wrong. But I can't blame the actress because she was given shit.
All right, let's get to it because we've been dancing around it. We keep saying we're going to talk about it, but we really this is the point we really do need to talk about it. So I'm gonna let you start because we're gonna start with the good stuff and then we'll get to the bad stuff. Why do you think Jean Grey was done well or correctly in this film?
I think the dark side of Jean Grey was done well in this film. How Jean Grey in the more recent comics continuity is basically a fucking monster, but the comics pretend like she's not. And I feel like this was a really good representation of how fucking terrifying it would be if the telepath actually existed.
Okay.
And I'll also say this version of Jean was running on the original Scott's character arc from the original comics.
No, I mean she wasn't, but we'll get to that.
Well, no. The original character arc where they'd been led astray before they found Xavier.
Right.
And they were doing bad things.
But the thing is that this is not actually Jean Grey.
Well,
it's Jean Grey in name only. It's a different character, a lesser known character that is one of my favorite characters.
Well, she's going to be Jean Grey in the X-Men movies.
Yeah, no, they're going to make it happen. That doesn't mean it's a good thing.
Okay, so what's your angle here?
Here's my beef. Jean Grey's original story, and I'm including expanded material, but it's the original timeline of events. She was a pretty average kid. This is a very important thing for mutant narrative. Mm-hmm. The children are innocent before their mutant powers develop, right?
Mm-hmm.
When her mutant powers developed, she reached out, touched her friend's brain. Her friend becomes a sister. That's fine, whatever. And basically lobotomized her by accident. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This gave Jean Grey a lifetime sense of shame and repression, which Charles Xavier, finding her as a young woman, like very young, like 8, right, was a surrogate parent and helped her to accept her powers. But this is very key to her character development because Marvel Girl was a telekinetic, not a telepath. She's not as strong as Xavier, right? And she was holding back her own powers through her own anxieties, right? This was actually groundwork for what eventually became the Dark Phoenix saga. The only reason the Hellfire Club was able to manipulate the Phoenix through Jean Grey was because they were unlocking her darkest parts of her personality that she had been repressing for decades.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is why any attempt they've made to do the Dark Phoenix saga has failed because they attempted to do it all in one movie.
Right, and you really can't. You have to show why the Phoenix is good, so you can then show why the Phoenix is bad. But my point is that rather than being an innocent who is damaged and afraid and confused, as you say, they present Jean Grey as a monster and then say that it's okay. Right?
And that's not okay.
But they then also, except for a little bit at the end, don't present her as any kind of telekinetic. They present her as a telepath. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's she doing? She's puppeting people. This isn't Jean Grey. This is the Shadow King.
I mean, yes. But they're wanting to set up the X-Men movie. So that's why they have Jean Grey in here.
I get that, but what I'm saying is that if you had said, okay, we're going to do a story about the Shadow King, and the Shadow King is doing a Shadow Kinging and is seizing people's bodies, and the only person he can't seize is Peter Parker because Peter Parker's spidey sense protects him from being taken over, you could still do the exact same beats in the exact same film, and it's fine, right? But he's a unambiguous antagonist. Nobody's supposed to like the Shadow King. He's a dick. He's
Mhm.
everything that the X-Men fight against, right? Jean Grey is supposed to be one part victim, one part heroine, but she does nothing in that movie worthy of heroism. Even her
No.
attempts to save her friend that turn out to be false, that turn out to be a failure, are not actually worth it. She's just a murderous psychopath.
Well, I mean, she does help keep Peter alive at the end of the movie. That's not
Right,
nothing, but it's not anything serious.
but it's the same thing we've seen across a dozen other media fronts in the last 10 years, which is this idea that people say they're sorry and then they're absolved.
Yeah.
She's not absolved
Now,
of shit.
we've talked about that. I also want to talk about the romance plot, which was mostly something I enjoyed, but they did a little retcon on the multiverse spell cast by Doctor Strange in the last movie. Like, why did you decide? Oh, well, it was because of Aunt May. No. You're doing that because you're wanting it to be about relationships and about how you need to trust your partner and tell them things and blah, blah, blah. No, don't retcon that because that was actually good in the last movie.
Well, it's because they did something that Marvel hasn't done, that is a perpetual fuck up, right? And they even did it the right way, but they didn't set up the groundwork for it. So this movie, Brand New Day, is basically Marvel's One More Day, right? And in One More Day, we are presented with the idea Mephisto stole the Spidey marriage, right? Because he gets a little hate boner every time that someone in love is denied love, right? But the presentation by Joey Q, which they fed us and then they will never follow through on, is that if you believe in love can find a way, eventually Spider-Man and Mary Jane's true romance will break Mephisto's deal. We all know that's the actual beat they eventually have to do. They're just saving it for when the money is bad enough that they need to do it.
Oh no, Marvel management does not want to do that.
Oh, I know they don't. But I'm saying if things really went bad, they've got that tack nuke in their back pocket because it would make $1 billion.
Oh yeah.
In this movie, they did that. They inferred that these relationships, not just romantic love, but these friendships are true and strong and are stronger than the magic. They can't break the magic, but they can weasel through the magic because the people are different now. The magic has changed them, right? The thing is that it all feels really unearned because it's really unearned.
Yeah. And while I like the fact that Zendaya did a good job in this movie as an actress because she was actually given stuff that she could do well, I don't feel like it makes sense.
Right.
But all in all, I like this movie, and I really want it to cause somebody in Disney's office to have an aneurysm about what will happen if this movie outperforms Doomsday, where they spent like $750 million or something stupid like that on both of the movies.
That's the thing. I really didn't like it. My ultimate feeling coming away from it was, besides some more immediate kind of like, you motherfuckers, my actual feeling coming away from it was, yeah, it's a thing I watched.
It was a very Ditko kind of Spider-Man story, though.
That's what everyone is saying. I think it's Ditko with kid gloves. I think Ditko would actually have leaned into having a somewhat harder Frank, but I understand why they had to soften up Frank.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. I'm actually on board with saying they didn't do Frank dirty in this movie.
No, because Spider-Man and Punisher, whenever they were teamed up, typically had a relationship kind of like this, where Spider-Man was reluctantly working with Frank.
Right.
Everybody kind of thinks Frank is a good guy, but he does awful things.
Well, as a for instance, some people were jumping bad about at the end of the film. Spoilers for the film. You're at the gospel. Fuck off. Um, Frank is in Peter's hospital room and is upset because he did Peter wrong because he took the shot, and everyone's like, Frank would always have taken the shot, and it's like Frank did take the shot. The shot was meant for Jean Grey, and Frank was 100% correct to fucking do so, right?
Yes, 100% correct.
Spider-Man's spider sense got him in the way. Spider-Man got hit. Frank is not upset he took the shot at Jean Grey. He's not crying because I almost killed a kid. It's, oh God, I shot Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a good kid. He didn't do anything wrong. I almost killed an innocent person. That does fuck up Frank. All the time.
All
across
the time.
multiple runs.
Now, the absolute worst thing in the movie was fucking Yelena.
Here's the thing. Yet again, I don't blame the actress.
Right.
It was very much, they put her in because they needed a lore nod. They needed a reference to something. But this is actually what I was getting at earlier. Like, they could have put Happy in. They could have put anyone else in. They could have given DeWolf more meat at the bone to work with coordinating with Spider-Man. And they just didn't.
And her being sexually harassing towards him is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't care for Yelena as a character.
No. This is, we've talked about this before as well, which is the assessment of what pieces of Marveldom to use. Yelena as an actual piece of Marvel Comics, it's not that she doesn't exist, but like she was a very minor piece of Black Widow lore because they tried to make a play for what if we had a different Widow, and it didn't land. So they swept it under the rug very quickly and got back to Natasha. Right? I'm not saying that they should have gone out of their way to keep what's her name?
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, I understand ScarJo wanted out of her contract, but the fact of the matter is that Yelena has never quite landed.
Well, she went out of her contract because they didn't give her her own movie until the end of her contract.
Which everyone agrees they really should have, and it should have been before Endgame, not after it.
Yeah. Huh. But all in all, thanks to this being Hollywood, no one's going to learn the correct lessons from this movie.
Right.
But hopefully it'll give Tom Holland some more work, and he can improve his status as a working actor.
Yeah.
But we also saw something else superhero related. We drank a little bit of poison because for some fucking reason they did a second season of that awful Batman Caped Crusader. And Jesus Christ, this was worse than the first season.
Oh, it's the absolute worst kind of not bad. So the first season was very, very bad because they decided to put the Penguin in drag and make that a major plot point for the run of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that was just blunt and stupid and annoying. And you'd think that they would learn their lesson. And then they didn't.
No.
Right? So
first of all, why in the fuck did they make that choice for how they did the Riddler?
Because they couldn't have the Joker, and they wanted to do the more classic Golden Age Joker who doesn't smile.
Well, no, I mean, they have the Joker. Joker's been in the background of the whole series.
Right.
Doing a Joker.
Right, but they need a cackling Jack Napier, and they couldn't have it be the Joker, so they had the Riddler do it, which is dumb. But that's not even the dumbest part of that component. No, what I want to know is, how do you go from a pitch-perfect depiction of Jervis Tetch to making him Entertainment Tonight with a cloying harpy? That is fucking awful.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because here's the thing. I was thinking about this as I was getting my dinner and coming to log in to show tonight. The problem with Cape Crusader is that it is the worst combination of a greatest hits album, because a lot of this feels like the greatest hits of things we've done before in the Bruce Timm verse, right? And it's remixes, right? So you listen to music and there's a song you like, right? Some song, and
Mhm.
then the band does a studio remix that was never supposed to come out, but they put it on the back of the album, as a an Easter egg for you to enjoy. And you listen to it, and it kind of sucks, which is why it was never supposed to get out of the studio in the first place, right? That's what we're looking at here, right?
Mhm.
Again, it never quite lands. It never quite does what it's supposed to do. Even
Also,
the
the
even
female
though
Rocketeer is basically a terrorist that we're supposed to feel sorry for.
Right. Whereas Roxy Rocket in the Batman animated series was a fun character that we all kind of laughed about.
Um,
But here's the big one. This is the big thing. So I made it through the first four episodes because I got through to the Bat Cult episode, which is basically just a remake of Terror in the Sky and the Mad
right.
Monk. Um, And what I found, the biggest flaw in the Riddler narrative, it's a really bad film noir and it doesn't look the part.
Yeah.
It's not just that they said, let's take Edward Nygma, make him Jack Napier, and make him a violent psychopath. They also said, we're going to do a greatest hits of films of the era because we want this version of Gotham to be very either pre World War II or early post War World War II,
Mm.
right? And so it's like, okay, so what do we got? Well, we got cops and we got robbers, and our robbers are gangsters, and our gangsters all wear fedoras. It's like,
Except
okay,
except for the renegade cop who gets turned into an angry zombie. That's
right.
in a later episode. I'm looking, the fuck? I mean, I'm sure, but lots of dumb things happen in Batman. I'm sure there was an angry zombie somewhere in the annals of Batman.
I mean, assuming that that's not their stand-in for Solomon Grundy in this case, which I think was the
No, no,
the episode with the
they had
guy
an
getting baned.
yeah. I thought the Bane guy was like a kind of sort of Solomon Grundy
But
as
either
well.
way, the thing is that as a low key aficionado of pulp and film noir, right?
Mhm.
First, there's a certain level of grit that is part of the visual language of film noir, not because it's black and white, but just because even the limitations of the film of the time give everything kind of a sooty gravity to it.
Yeah,
Cape Crusader is an extremely clean film. It's drawn clean, it's painted clean, it's all grayscaled and not quite pastels. It doesn't have weight. The characters just move around their scenes, say their lines, right? Also, because we are a 30-minute show, no commercials, we have more time than the kind of 15-minute blocks built around commercial breaks that the Batman animated series had, right? But we don't have enough time to really ruminate on what's going on. So when we have the Matches Malone episode and Batman's in the big house with the dude, right?
it
It's
was
still
very poorly paced.
it still feels very snap this happens, snap this happens, snap this happens, when it's like, no, we need to slow down. We need to feel that we're in the big house. Here's the four walls. And when you say, well, Joe, how would you do that with less time? We saw that episode of Batman the Animated Series. It was called The Forgotten. It
Hmm.
was about an evil uh, chain gang owner running captives, and Batman got put in the box, right? Um, but as they try to do film noir, as they try to do the gangland warfare arc because the cops and the robbers are at odds while Rupert Thorne has disappeared. It never quite works because it doesn't have the grit or gravitas of the Untouchables. It doesn't feel threatening. In matter of points, didn't even think about it until just now. The Untouchables, the film, which is based on a TV show, but it's not supposed to be historically accurate to begin with. The actor who played Needy, the right-hand button man to Capone.
Yeah.
That's what they were aiming for with the Riddler.
But
and
they
that's
did
why
not,
it
do
does
that
not
right.
work. Does not hit.
Also, the animation being cheaper than the original animation.
Yeah.
That I've been noticing a lot more in new animation how the reduction in frame rates really just makes things look fakey fake.
Everybody doesn't want to do frames. Frames are expensive, even though they take less than a second to take, and they're just a control C, control V, control Z. Yeah.
I'm just saying, with AI and
Right.
AI art, you could probably do frames cheaper.
Well, yeah, but again, we look at the Bat Cult episode. You have a very interesting idea. We're gonna have Batman standing in a sphere of smoke, right? Getting attacked by Bat cultists, and he's basically getting attacked from all sides. He's taking hits from all sides. How do we make this dynamic? Is this visually dynamic? No, he just kind of stands there and swings at nothing and gets stabbed a bunch.
Yeah.
Like where is the artistry we have come to expect of Bruce Timm? We know he can do better. He's just not. It's like he doesn't give a shit because he's still getting his paycheck.
Yeah. So once again, don't recommend watching that, especially if you're watching that on a paid platform.
Right.
Don't recommend it.
I just found it interesting because, like I said, it was a greatest hits, and again, we can find the comparisons to Batman the Animated Series stuff that's happened before. And I do think that it ties back into our Spider-Man conversation because that is a lot of what Hollywood is doing in trying to systematize and structure their superhero media. Is they're just like, okay, we did this once and it worked, so we'll do this again and it'll work. And it's like, well, yeah, but does it work contextually? Nobody cares about context. Visuals are what matters. And it's like, no, if the context is bad, your superhero story won't work. This has always been true. The visuals are a function of the context, not a replacement for the context.
Absolutely. Now I want to talk about another positive thing. It's the King of the Hill revival. I have another season.
Yes, I have a personal note on that stand. Two things. One, fuck John Redcorn, he's gone.
shame the actor is dead.
Yeah, shame the actor died. But no, I am glad to see that character has reached the terminus of his shitty story because John Redcorn was a piece of shit as a character.
Yeah.
But it's extra funny. So that other points. One of my role playing game chronicles is now official canon.
Oh.
In King of the Hill.
Oh yeah.
So I was talking to my friend Ben as I was paying my rent yesterday, and I was trying to talk to him about the John Redcorn thing, but he's like, "Look, man, I don't want to talk about it too much because I haven't seen the new season yet." I'm like, "Oh, okay." But we were talking about the previous season because you and I had been talking, or I had been talking with Moody about Bobby Hill and his interesting character development as a businessman, right?
Which goes deeper this season.
Oh yeah. And Ben told me that in one episode, Dale implies that or Dale is concerned that Hank has been replaced by like a pod person, right, or a double,
because of soccer,
right? And it is implied to him that Dale believes in all kinds of weird cryptids and stuff, and Dale remarks that he actually killed a werewolf once. right? Now, for everyone else, that's just funny. But for those of us who played King of the Vigil, the Hunter of the Vigil game where we were the King of the Hill characters, and the Vigil was our secret second life, we were all pointing at the screen going, "There it is! It's real!"
But this season has two big character arcs.
Yeah.
One of those character arcs is Bobby's further progression into becoming a man,
Right.
and there was the reality show that they've been teasing the prior season. He finally gets on there, and the show basically says, "Hey, kid, we want you to sell out." And Bobby Hill, because he's Hank Hill's son, doesn't sell out. He, in fact, affirms his love for Connie, who Bobby could always have done better than Connie. But in the process of doing that, he actually ends up helping his business more than he probably would have if he won on the damned reality show. People saw him and they
Right.
related to him, and they want to be a part of Bobby Hill's restaurant thing. And that's neat. It's really neat. Also, they showed the genesis for Bobby becoming a cook. Hank lost his job at Strickland Propane, and Bobby started cooking at a Whataburger, and he realized, oh my God, I love food, love making people happy. I love making people happy with food.
Which, as you and I discussed, is a nice callback to when Bobby Hill was a meat assessor. He assessed the quality of meat.
Oh yeah.
And it turns out Bobby is like a master barbecue guy, which is the one thing he and Hank could bond over.
Yeah, it's really great. And Hank had trauma that led to him abandoning Strickland Propane, and he got called back in. But Hank didn't become a wage slave to Mr. Strickland again. Hank bought a percentage of the company. He bought the majority percentage of the company.
Right.
And that was a really neat character arc for Hank.
Well, I do believe it was a conversation you and I had. The thing that I'm very interested in, if I should happen to go watch the second season of King of the Hill, because I got to finish the first season as well. Spoilers if you're watching. Khan and his wife are going their separate ways, right? And I am actually really tickled at the idea that Khan, who was always a braying jackass and kind of a racist, is coming together with Bill, because Bill is the only man that can understand how devastating it is to be divorced. I like the idea that the show has not, because remember the original program, the original King of the Hill, and how Bill was often the butt of like every joke, right? But it's like, no, they treat Bill like a human being. There is a person in there worthy of respect and care. He's just deeply damaged.
And in this season, we also had Peggy Hill realizing, wait, am I the asshole?
It took her long enough.
And she apologized for being the asshole because it hurt Bobby. And I thought, this is what we want from a TV show. We want characters we like to go on an emotional journey. We want to feel things. It's just like what happened in Spiderman, right? We wanted to feel things. We didn't feel anything from Tom Holland's performance in The Odyssey, or Zendaya's performance, or John Barenthal's performance, but with the right story and the right direction, they can make you feel things.
I am going to twist a knife. I am going to twist the knife, and you are going to laugh about it. So, Seth MacFarlane, if you happen to be watching us, if you're trekking through the internet, finding the next $1 million idea, and you ask yourself, whatever happened to a Family Guy? It was made by Mike Judge, and it's called King of the Hill. Fuck you.
I mean, technically, Family Guy is interconnected to the same universe that King of the Hill is in.
Yes, but what I'm getting at specifically is that King of the Hill, and to a lesser extent, American Dad, are both built on a combination of a idealistic remembrance of what it was to watch family sitcoms in the 70s and early 80s into the 90s, and uh basically asked the question, how did everything get so lewd and venal while being lewd and venal, right? And the fact of the matter is that no, the good stuff never went away. The good stuff is made by people with heart and dedication,
Mm-hmm.
who don't give a
Mm-hmm.
shit if other people say that it's not going to be profitable.
Mike Judge clearly gives a shit.
Well, here's the thing: if we step back even further, whether it's Idiocracy or Beavis and Butthead, Mike Judge has exactly the kind of personality as a creator that we laud here on the Gospel.
Yes.
Because he does not give a shit about what anybody thinks about his material. He's just going to make it, and what he makes tends to be good.
Yeah.
Is Mike Judge up for consideration as one of our living saints?
I would say yes. I'd say yes.
Saint Judge, the idiot. he would love that too,
And I think my run with Titan Comics Conan is coming to an end. Because they're just really just doing Conan short stories now. Like now we're in a run where Conan is dressed up in like 15th, 16th century pirate gear.
Yeah, that does happen in the original Howard.
Yeah, I'm like,
when he's running around, when he's running around with the Brotherhood and the Barackans, it's very archaic and out of place for the rest of the very sword and sandal Hyperborean age.
Yeah.
But in that regard, if we're transitioning into sort of indies and alternative, I'm gonna take a surprising direction. I am gonna advise that people check out an anime.
Oh, which anime?
So Ghost in the Shell got another series recently.
Right, we've been talking about it actually on the show.
Yeah. And I hadn't seen it, but there had been some buzz because people were really upset because it was more like the comic that they had not read. They grew up watching Standalone Complex. Well, it's 4 episodes in. I watched those 4 episodes between doing job interviews with an AI. Because one of the places that I applied to, they literally have you do a job interview with an AI. And it's not bad.
I've been enjoying it.
I appreciate that it's got a bit more comedy. I appreciate that they want to get into the sort of the grittier side of the global politic, which has always been a facet, but it kind of was getting downplayed by all of the film noir cop procedural stuff. But there is a massive made me jump out of my seat and do a happy dance thing. And I want to say it's in the 3rd episode when they actually meet the puppet master hacker.
Yes.
It's not implicit anymore. It's explicit. Ghost in the Shell is the exact same universe as Dominion Tank Police.
Damn right it is.
But Dominion Tank Police is in America.
Damn right. It's a good time.
Because the guy with the cyberprosthesis components and the black hair sort of swept back into the curly fringe, that is an antagonist from the short run, what was it, like 7 to 12 episode series, New Dominion Tank Police? Yeah, they killed one of his bodies in that show. And here he is fucking around in East Asia, screwing with Section 9. And I was like, yes!
So the really big thing I want to talk about, in addition to the comics related stuff, is White Wolf fucking themselves up again, or rather, Paradox wearing the skin of White Wolf, or or whatever the new company is that's wearing White Wolf like a skin.
Yeah. No, this is actually really pertinent because I want to outline this to the guys, but I didn't have the free time. I was a little busy this afternoon. So I need people to understand White Wolf does not exist.
It's a holding company.
It's a holding company. All of the old people have either been reapportioned elsewhere or outright fired. Okay? White Wolf was broken up.
They occasionally get called back for nostalgia play.
Right. White Wolf was broken up into 3 pieces plus Onyx Path Publishing. Onyx Path Publishing is its own thing, but they had connective tissue because that was the final remnants of old White Wolf preserving their non-World of Darkness games. Okay, because they were basically able to buy things like Cavaliers of Mars before the rug got burned. And Scion and Trinity. What happened was White Wolf was in a bad way and got bought by CCP, who they had allied with. Right? CCP, we're not talking about the People's Republic of China. We're talking about the guys who make EVE Online, who wanted to make a World of Darkness role-playing game as an MMO. It didn't happen. CCP took their get-out-of-jail-free card. White Wolf floundered for a bit and got bought by Paradox. Paradox wanted to kill everything and start over again, and were talked into the idea that that wasn't a good idea. So the holding companies that were White Wolf, that are under the White Wolf umbrella, are a LARP-centric publisher, the classic World of Darkness publishing, which is still under the name White Wolf, and something for their card games and other gaff, their Jihad, the Eternal Struggle stuff, right? And then of course their digital rights for video games and whatnot. That's all of White Wolf. It's 4 different components of what was once a cohesive media empire.
Yeah, they're IP holding companies.
What happened recently between V5 and now is first they gave publishing over to Morphidius. They licensed it out. And Morphidius was responsible for all of the very public embarrassments, like almost causing an international incident by implying that an East European government was killing gays to feed vampires.
So, interestingly enough, Mark Rain-Hagen said, this was something I wrote up as like a flavor text idea that they just incorporated into an in-character thing, and it was a bigger fuck up than I even remember it being.
Yeah, that's the thing. Mark Rain-Hagen was saying, I wrote this down and then didn't use it because I knew it was a bad idea.
But they did.
Yeah, they did. And so after Morphidius kind of wasn't making inroads and Morphidius was mishandling other RPGs, because Morphidius is sort of the king of licensed RPG material. Their Conan got very public disdain for basically having a safety tools and warning in the front saying that the Hyborian Age is full of sexiness and titties, and that's bad.
And also, the 2D20 system is terrible.
It absolutely is abysmal. They said, okay, we'll pass it off to Renegade Studios. Now, we played some Renegade Studios for this show, although it never got finished. Renegade Studios did the G.I. Joe RPG, they did the Power Rangers RPG, they did the Transformers. Yeah, all on what's called the Essence system. They couldn't use Essence for V5, it was already written, but they basically printed some books and published some stuff. My standing argument is V5 was dead in the water for 3 reasons. 1, they made changes to the mechanics and the structure for the sake of change, not for tangible reasons. And change for change is a bad game design notion. If something's not broken, don't fix it. Right? The second problem was they increased the cost of their books and then put out less product and less useful product.
And also, their art and their books decreased in quality as well.
Yeah, because they swapped from drawn art that was kind of comic book and very much appealed to the graphic novelist in a role player
Hmm.
to photographed art with models. And this was supposed to also have brand synergy across all game lines. So, as a for instance, there's a lore sheet, a optional character background you can take for being connected to Jeanette Borman from Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, because the story of Masquerade Bloodlines is now part of your chronicle by default. You have to accept that that LA shit exists.
Yeah.
And the answer
Yeah.
is no, we don't, and nobody wants it. Um, but that brings us to the actual fortune cookie, the big one. So, as you may recall, because you've been through these books, there's a Camarilla book and there's an Anarch book of varying levels of quality and usefulness, and they have seeded mechanics across multiple books, so you have to buy all of them, right?
Hmm.
They did a Sabbat book. Did you ever thumb through the Sabbat book?
No, because it was an NPC book, and I could do an NPC in that system for Sabat better than they could.
Not only is it an NPC book, but it's an NPC book with no mechanics. And
Yeah.
I don't just mean no mechanics. I mean, they talk at great length about the meaning, flavor, and the disposition of the altered paths of morality that the Sabbat follow, the path of metamorphosis, the path of the inner voice, the path of paradox, and what have
Which
you,
also were
right?
rare even among the Sabat
Right.
in classic White Wolf.
And then give you no tools to use them at all. It is, in fact, an absolutely useless coffee table book. It looks pretty, serves no purpose. The only mechanics that are valuable in it are two level 4 and 5 respectively oblivion rituals. And you and I know, having played sorcerers before, anything that's in an NPC book and is described as being rare and hard to get might as well be code for your players will never get this.
Unless you're stupid.
Unless you're stupid. But this is only part of that cherry, the sprinkle on the shit sandwich. Do you remember Frosk? Do you remember what Frosk said publicly?
No. I don't remember what Frosk said publicly.
So Frosk was a influencer who got some media attention, and was at least in part responsible for destroying G4 when G4 tried to get started again by running her mouth about political
Oh,
issues.
that dumb bitch. Yeah.
Right. She was doing media representation for V5 and was asked, what about the Sabbat? Or will the Sabbat be playable in the future? Now, I posit that as a business, the smart answer is that if you don't want to actually do the Sabbat, you don't say you're not going to. You say, we're not doing them at this time. Maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future, we're trying to regrow the
Right.
brand. We don't
Right.
want to
Now-
overcomplicate the market.
Now, the answer is, of course, is that if you're never going to do it, you just never say you're going to do it, but you always imply I might. We just didn't get to it, because then you're innocent. You have an out. Well, we said we might, right? No, she said, in Vampire you play monsters, but you shouldn't want to play monsters, and basically asserted that we weren't going to give you the rules to play Sabbat because no one should want to play Sabbat in Vampire. You're not allowed. Telling players they aren't allowed to do something in a role-playing game that for 30 years defined itself as do what you want with our sandbox, that is death. That is fucking self-sacrifice. That is shooting yourself in the Johnson for your game.
That is wrong fun, and you're not allowed to have wrong fun.
Right. If there is any one thing no players like, it is having tools taken out of your toolbox and taken away.
So let's talk about the alpha.
Right.
product.
That brings us to V6, where they take away your tools out of your toolbox and say, "Why do you want those tools? You didn't need them."
So I'm confused because the character builder for V6 that's on their website.
Yep.
And the characters they have for the playtest packet don't seem to be running on the same rules.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
I think maybe the playtest characters are just like a quick start dealy do
Mm-hmm.
to get those out there.
Yep.
The character builder is at least not as bad. The White Wolf system from the character builder looks like classic White Wolf with elements of Powered by the Apocalypse and Daggerheart thrown into it.
Right. And people are apparently screaming that it is too similar to D&D, and I don't fault them. Because let's consider this playtest is not at any level about introspection or the nature of horror. It's
No.
not a buyer's choice walk through the supernatural world of vampire. It is a dungeon crawl. Go to this
Yes.
house to investigate what's wrong, find monster, fight monster.
Yeah, which means what when I was reading some of the posts on Twitter, people were talking about when the playtests came out, they kind of told you what the game was going to be about. And so this is what if vampire is a grind? What if
Right.
vampire is going to be a grindy dungeon crawling? I mean, I didn't like Vith. I would have just played V20 and be happy with V20.
So
Uh, so
so
why
here
why why should I buy V6?
so here's a fun spin when we're talking about problems with this game, so that people understand that we're not just making this up. We're not just being bitter old men who don't like change. The other night when I was doing my job interview, okay, the AI gave me disparate hypothetical situations and how would you deal with this. One of those was, as an editor, how would you deal with a misunderstanding that is between the structures involved in what you're supposed to be doing, right? The regulatory component, the people working with it who are making annotations, right? So the annotators and the taxonomies, right? And I know what the word taxonomy means. Taxonomy
Mhm.
basically means name. What do you do when you have a bunch of names applied to things, right? So you kind of can put together what this business would look like. Here's a job. Here's what the job requires. It has a bunch of proper nouns for a bunch of different facets. How do you make sure that people aren't getting confused by those facets? Right? Now we look at V6. V6 has this problem in spades. Not just the in character lexicon, right? Neonate, Ancilla, Elder, Childer, Camarilla, Anarch, Sabbat, what have you, right? But the mechanical lexicon has been grievously increased, right? So you have vitae and you have willpower and you have health, and it's all one fuel type now, which is
Which
already bad,
mechanically is a terrible decision.
right? But then we also have your character gains quickening. When do you gain quickening? We gain quickening during moments of drama. What's drama? It's when the ST gives you bad stuff to make the game more dangerous. Okay, but wait a minute. If you get too much quickening, you begin to have outbursts, which is when your humanity takes over, and you start to have interference from your beast, which is a different term that I forget. So we have a term leading to a term, leading to a term, leading to a mechanic. And White Wolf has done this before, and it's always bad.
And here's the thing: the quickening is a fate-like system,
Right.
and the problem is if you're using a plot mechanic system to encourage players for bad stuff, you can't punish them for not spending their plot currency.
Right.
Now, when we were designing a game, which hopefully once your job situation stables on, we can go back to that project. You, I had a solution for that. Well, your expenditure, your plot candy, is how your experience points are set up.
Right.
So, I mean, you could sit on your plot candy all you want, but if you really want to get those cool powers, you're probably going to want to spend those so you can generate experience points.
Well, there again, V6. We have XP. We gain experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also have an entirely new, entirely different, all special mechanical structure around our special powers called maturation, so that they will grow with us. Okay, so what is maturation? It's spending XP. Okay, so it's just the word for XP. No, maturation is its own subsystem for how XP is spent for how your powers develop. So let me get this straight. I spend XP on my powers. Yep. And then my power matures. Yep. But they're not the same thing. Yep. That is not good design. Because now the natural question is, so which of my powers mature and which ones don't? Is it in the power entries? It better be. If it's not, we better be somewhere else. And if it's in the power entries, how is that not fiddly and requires a bunch of eyeballing the book? When it should be something you can snap and remember instantaneously. Because remember what our complaint about V6 or about V5 was. V5 changed its discipline structure to an all new, all different discipline structure and gave us Diablo-style epileptic trees where I could only pick 5 powers, but those 5 powers had to be from the tree. And it was actually bad enough that in a later book, they gave you options to take flaws to be able to get more powers because they realized, oh shit, we don't have enough abilities for players that are evolving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, Old White Wolf had a thing with meta disciplines, which you could have used to solve this problem. And V5 kind of sort of has meta disciplines, but not really. And New World of Darkness has meta disciplines.
So I think that the World of Darkness, and this isn't just a White Wolf problem because this occurs in Onyx Path 2 with their own World of Darkness knockoff with hookers and blackjack called Curseborn.
Curseborn is really shitty.
It has a built-in problem over time. Back when Mark Rein-Hagen and his friends were making Vampire the first time, the best time, they were essentially teens and young men. I assume there were women too, but young people.
Yeah.
Right? And just like Deep Silver and Volition making Saints Row, they were not above doing outrageous, stupid shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Then we have Revised, then we have Second, then we have then we have Second, then we have Revised, then we have B20, then we have B4, what have you. But in Chronicles, they tried to be a little more serious. They didn't take away the darkness, but they did saw off some of the most extreme edges. I don't even necessarily think that was bad. Right? But V5 is a lot softer in the World of Darkness context. Right?
Mm-hmm.
V6 is even softer. Curseborn, there's almost no interesting conflict at all. There's no reason to fight.
So, here's something. In Curseborn, how do you determine damage?
I believe you described this before. It's a flat rather than a dice roll, but it's also if you think you need to take damage because they don't give you a good system for getting damage.
Well, no. Like, they don't give you a good system for giving damage to your enemies. And they don't have a good system for player-on-player violence.
Right. But having said that, I will point out that somehow V6 said hold my beer and decided to have a worst damage resolution system. Did you see the damage resolution system for V6?
I did not.
Okay, so you have willpower and you have health and you have blood.
Which are all one stat now, which is stupid.
Well, they're all one stat, but you're also supposed to track them separately because if you're attacked socially, that hurts your willpower. Okay, which almost makes sense because in V5 we had the idea that you could take willpower damage. Okay, because willpower was a separate form of health, which works, right? Here's the thing: V6. I punch you, Larry. What happens?
There's a damage roll.
Right. I roll damage, then I reduce the damage by your metric. It's essentially your blood potency, but any other mechanics you have in play that downgrade damage,
Okay.
right? Which means you could theoretically take no damage. But
Mhm.
but you also lose at least one blood. I punch you and your water balloon leaks.
I mean, there's several problems with that. The
And
most important problem I have with that is that you just build a character to do a bunch of small taps, and you drain somebody of their blood that way.
yes, because the other way you do it is you do somebody that does so much damage that they lose one blood for the punch and then a extra amount of blood per point of damage dealt, which is how the mechanics work. Anything that isn't downgraded is both physical damage and blood that spills out of your body.
So it's hemophiliac vampires.
It's hemophiliac vampires. Somehow they said we can do worse than Sparkly. What if the vampires were hemophiliacs?
And I don't know who is actually doing the DNA of the publishing, but I talked briefly to Mark Reinahagen about that. And Mark's opinion, and his opinion may be because he's kind of angry about everything that's happened to his baby after he was muscled out of it.
He's been angry for a long time.
And I mean, in fairness, if you made something that was so successful, you got to make a TV show off of
Yeah,
it, and then it got stripped away from you. You have a right to be angry.
we do, but this is the sad thing. This is why T-shirt and the other guys really screwed me over.
I mean, I tried to bridge that gap.
He and I haven't spoken since, so it's not that I wouldn't talk to him, but here's the thing. I'm going to be honest. Mark's outrage is as the creator, okay,
Mhm.
and he has a right to it, okay. My preferences are as the end user, the receiver of the material,
Yes.
right? I'm not saying mine is better. I'm saying we're different ends of a spectrum.
Yes.
But with that in mind, both of us can look at V6 and go, "Well, that ain't fucking vampire."
And something from a game design standpoint that's important. Your rules shouldn't be your starting point. They should not be your beginning point in your design. Your beginning point in your design should be, what kind of world are we going to be running a game in?
Right.
Okay, and what are the themes and tones of the world? Okay, and what sort of rules would reinforce these themes and tones and the genre of the game, if you will? Like, imagine, Joe, we're designing a role playing game about noir detectives who travel between dimensions and times, solving crimes.
I mean, the mechanics not only need to be kind of adventure, kind of Indiana Jones,
Mhm.
but you'd really need to emphasize sort of the film noir because it's a lot of mystery. It's a lot of entering
Mhm.
into inexplicable situations. It's probably more of a mental game than a physical game.
I mean, you other than the time travel part, you'd basically be adapting Chaosium's system, more or
Yeah,
less.
yeah,
And you say, okay, well, here's the mechanics we're going to need, blah blah blah. And I played in a role playing game that was about time travelers. You know, one of their core mechanics was temporal damage you had, and the more temporal damage you had, the more time problems you had.
right,
So if you took temporal damage, you need to go, who the fuck did what to me and how? And then you had to figure out how to travel back in time and fix it.
right.
And there's another interesting aspect to it is that this was set in a time between the end of the Time War. But the Time War has already happened. And somebody won. Everybody thinks their side was the one who won the Time War. And there's you have to design a game very specifically to fit that sort of aesthetic.
I mean, very much like we were talking about earlier with the film. Dimension, space, and time are different things, and you need to focus on those things. It would not work if you took this idea of interdimensional time traveling super detectives and you treated it as, okay, but what if they start going to parallel Earths? So when you say, okay, well, what's a parallel Earth? Like a time thing? It's like, no, it's just alternate. It's like that's kind of lazy. That's going to create problems in your mix later. You want to be more explicit in your mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also going back to themes, and we're talking about vampire. Well, the original catchphrase was, "It's a gothic gothic punk game of personal horror."
Yep.
And I don't think gothic punk means anything in the year of our Lord 2026.
I don't think it meant anything then, but I know what you're putting down.
Well, no, it meant something in the context of what was originally created. It was a gothic horror setting, and it was a punk horror setting that were kind of blended together. And you had the interface of both of those ideas in the setting. But then vampire became something else, and that's okay. Also, they have tenets for the new vampire game, which I hate. Tenet number 1 is your vampire's not the hero. You're not playing the hero. I mean, why not?
Fuck you. Byron is absolutely the hero of this story.
I mean, that's why Nick is like going, oh, well, fuck the Elder and his time travel bullshit. We're just going to beat him down. We just haven't successfully done it yet. Fuck him. But no, seriously, in a vampire game, you can in fact be the hero. And the RPG philosophy of like, you're not the hero, it's really trying to say you're not the protagonist of the story. And it's like a group event. It's a ideology in role playing, and I don't care for that ideology. If you go to the table and you're not saying, I'm the protagonist of the story that I'm telling at the table with the dice and the GM, then you're not doing yourself a service.
Well, here's the thing, because this is one of those interesting things. I always compare World of Darkness to comic books, right? And comic books are downriver from radio and television, right? So what is a vampire game? Well, first and foremost, it is an ensemble cast, yes, which means that everyone who's in the ensemble is the protagonist.
That's right.
Right? Now,
just what lens the camera is focused on at that moment in the story.
Right. So I'm going to use the best worst Star Trek because it actually matters for this. Voyager, right? They wanted you to think that their focus character was Janeway because captains, Star Trek. So Sisko, Archer, Kirk, Picard, focus, right? No. Janeway's not the focus character of Voyager because Voyager's an ensemble. Different characters are the focus of the week, but Janeway is always present, right? So now we walk through. It's like, okay, so who is our focus character? Well, sometimes it's Harry Kim, the perpetual ensign. Sometimes,
poor dumb Harry.
Yeah, poor Harry. Sometimes it's Tuvok, the security guy, who has to wrestle with the fact that he's kind of a tight ass. Sometimes it's Neelix, and you wish you were dead and not watching this show.
Yeah.
And my personal favorite, sometimes it's Tom Paris, and it's a halfway decent episode.
The only thing you have to say is, like, is there anything Tom Paris isn't qualified to do in Starfleet?
Be a captain, apparently.
Yeah.
But my point is, right, is that across 7 years of show, they moved from character to character and were able to give all of those characters, within varying degrees of success, enough stage to be fully formed people and even have character arcs.
Yeah.
Even though he annoys the shit out of me as a human being, Robert Picardo's Doctor has the actual best character story in Voyager. Do you know which episode I'm referring to?
We're talking about the one where his kids die.
Yeah, with the holographic family.
Yeah, that was a great
They
episode.
because they succeeded at what WandaVision failed at. WandaVision had fake kids and tried to make me believe Wanda was the good guy. The Doctor on Voyager had fake kids and actually made me sad that his kids died.
Yeah, and also he's like going, "Nope, I don't have to do this." And they're like, "No, you want to learn. That's how you learn. You got to go right back in there."
Right, but the only reason I bring it up is our V5 game. Okay, obviously our ST. Sorry, Owen, I'm calling you out. Has a bit of a bias. He likes what I brought to the table. It gave him some vim, some focus, and he's riding my plot to the station. Okay. Because remember, I only brought up the idea that's like, hey, what if my sire was a hero of the revolution that was dead and it was a mystery? That's all I gave him, and he was like, oh, I'm running with this, right? But Nick has gone from tweed vest academic on the outs with his clan to you're working for Tremere directly.
Yes.
And you're wearing a leather jacket, and you're literally, as you say, we're telling you, it's like, yeah, we're gonna go talk to an ancient. Let's just fucking kill that dude. It's like, you know, that guy's like probably of the third generation and is probably able to kick our shit in, and you're like, yeah, but we're the good guys here. We can handle this. Because to be fair, how many successes have we had? Back-to-back victory has defeated us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And then it's like, okay, well, what's Byron doing? Well, Byron's doing his thing. I've been building my Bruja political experiment, right? And it has reached critical mass because it's on the cusp of being successful. And being successful means, can it survive not having me? Right? And that could mean I die. That could just mean that I step away from a leadership position because I could be the millstone around the neck of my own idea, right?
Which is very Anarch Vampire, very on brand.
Incredibly on brand. And then we have Matt. Matt is a character we haven't had very long, but he's got his bit, which is wrestling with the fact that his family, as a La Sombra, might actually just be deeply involved in the infernalism, right? And we have Taquanchi, and we've talked a great deal about length about Taquanchi, and we understand that Taquanchi's player has some oddities because he's the newest of our player group with the least amount of vampire experience. But it's like, no, he successfully reconciled with his wife. He has successfully started the quest to take down the Giovanni. I think he's way too interested in telling us about the heft, weight, size, and distribution of his character's penis. But the important part is that all of these characters were able to successfully share limelight and transition from one person to another, having the primary plot focus.
Yeah.
For the better part of like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Right? Don't tell me it can't be done. It's I people have told me that it doesn't matter, that I take it way too personally, but that is that is the part of Werewolf the Forsaken 2nd Edition that angered me up the most. Do you remember the 10 Commandments?
I don't.
In the storytelling section, they actually have a section of the book called The 10 Commandments that is explicitly telling you, the ST, how to run game. These are the absolute commandments, not just rules, commandments you as an ST in Forsaken must follow, according to whoever the fuck wrote 2nd edition.
All right.
As you may imagine, I was really mad about that. I'll give you the rundown. Number 1, enjoy the experience. 2, pay attention to everyone. 3, contrast light with dark. So you can see these are already basically nothing witticisms. They're incredibly superficial. Number 4, my personal favorite. Don't say no. We are telling STs in Forsaken 2nd Ed, you're not allowed to tell players no.
I mean, if nothing else, yes, but is the classier now.
Well, that's the thing. Is that what they're actually saying is they want you to use yes, but and yes, and, right? But even within the text of their own descriptor here, they point out that sometimes saying no is important. And this is because they're wrong. You absolutely need to be able to look at players and say no. So when Taquanchi says, "I want to go bang my wife and I want to make Jane Manfield's head watch," right? Owen would be fully within his rights to go, "No, we're not going to focus on that. We have other things to do tonight."
Yeah, you just hand wave that happened.
Right. So then use sensory cues, use symbolism, use callbacks, use aids, because of course, physical aids are I'm sorry, not use aids, use asides. So it's good to take your players aside and have private conversations with them. Quote, showcase the struggles. So focus on the stuff that's difficult. And then number 10 was celebrate the awesome. I have never followed any of these rules. I have in fact actively defined myself as not giving a shit what they say.
You know, that this reminds me about safety tools and role playing games.
Mm-hmm.
When that became a hot trend, I said, I just say, hey, here's what we're going to be doing broadly in this game. Does anybody have a problem with that? And that is that's the only safety tool you really need. You don't need a pamphlet or a book chapter for that. And obviously you need to say, listen, there's not going to be a rape in the game. What, are you weird?
Right.
If rape happens, it's happening off screen, and not going to happen to your character, because why would I do that?
Well, here's the thing.
Don't ask me to.
Here's the thing. After game recently, Gilly, the player of Matt, and I had some time to just opine at great length, and I posited to them, A, that I don't use safety tools and don't believe in them, and that B, it's because I had a different safety tool already in place. Right.
You talk to your players. That's the ultimate safety tool.
Right. Well, because he was trying to posit, not unreasonably, that if somebody is traumatized by something, they don't actually have to explain it to you. They have a right to be like, I don't want to talk about it. Right? That's legit. I'm not going to pretend that is not a real thing. Right? But on the other end of the spectrum, I posit two things. One, you have to understand mistakes happen. Everybody's human. People screw up. Right? And two, because you and I have personal experience with this, one of our players in Darkness Beneath had been trafficked in reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's a horrifying notion. That is a terrifying thing, and very bad. And they came to the officers and like, I don't want to experience this in my role play, and I don't want to refer to it. Can we please not do that? So it's not that like child trafficking and sex slavery and all those awful things didn't happen in my world of darkness. We just didn't bring them up.
No, we didn't.
Right? Because the player did the correct thing, which is they brought it to our attention early. They brought it to our attention privately, and they said, I don't want this. And we said, you know what? Legit. That's not going to happen. And so we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Right?
And all these stories I hear, and a lot of these old war stories, I don't really believe. I think some of these kind of old war stories are kind of puffery. Of all these people talking about games where characters get raped in, and I'm like going, why would you play with people who do that?
I used to listen to D&D horror stories for the lulls, just because some of them would occasionally be amusing.
Mm-hmm.
But I very quickly started to note certain earmarks, and it's like, no, 90% of it has got to be made up. If you're not because of even things like somebody wouldn't do it. I can imagine that there's that guy that's so skeevy that he's like, and then I take off her pants. It's like, oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with you? Right? But I want to meet the person. I want someone to come on this show and explain to me how it is that it's like, you played with this asshole for 6 months and none of you had the balls to look at him and say, I don't want to play in your game anymore.
I mean, that was like one of the things from the first Dragon magazines and stuff, where they would say, hey, listen, have you considered talking to people?
right?
Because that's the core standard.
But that brings us back to B6, which is it's not just this one point that you've brought up that is a real thing. A lot of the storyteller's toolbox is apparently gone. That's what some of our peers were commenting on. Uh, Many of the tools for management have been stripped away, in presumably as part of the ongoing clarion cry of player agency. But the problem is that it's not even that players need to be regulated. It's if you give them all the agency, but then you can't tell them where to go, what the fuck are they supposed to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, you can have player agency, but if you don't say, "Hey, Mr. GM, can we talk about what we're doing for my character?" Then the agency doesn't matter.
Well, because my perspective is actually supported by mechanics. We have the Edicts of Cincinnati. If
Mm-hmm.
my situation resolves itself and we actually get to run that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to play a Camarilla domain because we played an Anarch domain, and the players should get the experience of both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's in that document? Well, in addition to the basic laws and strictures that the prince has put out that everyone's expected to know, right?
Yeah.
So nobody's coming into game as a nobody told me what the laws were. Yes, we did. They're right there. Um, but also it has chronicle specific lore sheets with interesting new mechanics that I made to fun things to play with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has the who's who. It has all the NPC kindred you can interact with. But do you remember the important thing about those NPC kindred?
They were all basically warlords there to guard the wild frontier.
But they weren't just I'm very important because I have more status than you. They each represented some form or style of local governance. The idea was that if you connected yourself to them, you were hooking yourself into not just a style of play, but an approach to unlife, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you decided to hook up with the Bana Hakim Seneschal of the city, right? What is his primary focus? Well, his primary focus is looking at this, Iron Age barbarian that is a warrior prince and curtailing his worst impulses. How does that trickle down to players that work for him? Because he expects you to be exemplars of restraint, be humane, represent order, foresight, reason, shock it, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do that, don't work for him. Put your character in with one of the other houses doing their own thing.
And there's a plan B if your life situation sucks and we want to do a Camarilla game. Came up with a Camarilla character.
Oh,
And let me tell you a little bit about the character. So Gilly is thinking about setting a game in Savannah, Georgia,
okay.
and came up with an idea. Did a little homework in the actual history. So here's the character. His family was one of the founding families of Savannah, Georgia. And what most people don't know is there were like 5, 6, 7 Jewish founding families of the city. But his family had left and went to New York and became a prominent, wealthy family there. So my thought is, what if one of those guys, goes off, does a World War II, as you do, doesn't want to be in New York and be around the New York establishment, and goes home to Savannah, Georgia, where the family first came in the country in. And the folks in Savannah who know their history and their culture are all like, it's great this guy's back. And he's a military guy. Doesn't matter that he's a Yankee. He's really one of us on the inside. And a vampire who was alive back when his family was still in the city decides to embrace him, so the family never leaves the city again. And I don't know how familiar you are with the city of Savannah, Georgia. Are you familiar with the Savannah School of Art and Design?
I've heard of it, but I don't recall the particulars.
It's a very prominent art college that got its prominence because it didn't have a lot of money when it started out. So it got donated Moribund buildings that were historical, and they restored the buildings, and they built the school in those buildings, and thus used the historical buildings as financial leverage. So my idea was he was the vampire who was the first one to realize that this was a golden opportunity to, hide Elysiums with and things of that nature. And this school then goes on to absorb an art school in Atlanta, Georgia, and they go on to absorb an art school in France. Basically, they said, "Listen, we can pay you guys to be our study abroad school, but it's actually cheaper for us to just buy you outright,
Right.
and send our kids there for a semester if they want to go." And that's my idea for the character. And then I went a little further because he's of a German Jewish old money family. He, of course, learned to play instruments because at that time in the late teens, early 20s, you learn to play instruments if you're a person in status. He plays the piano and the cello. The tragedy is the cello, because things like breathing are very necessary for your performance with the cello. And if you don't breathe when you're a vampire, you're not fully playing the cello. Now his sire thinks his cello playing is amazing. It's so technically elegant, and there's not a lot of clutter. But his sire's a vampire who paints, who doesn't understand what music is. But he, as a musical performer, knows that his undead nature always denies him his ultimate artistic accomplishment.
Now see, this is funny because this is where I think your average masquerade game falls flat. But a Requiem game would give me the tools, if I was the GM in this scenario, to explore that idea. So in Masquerade, right, if you are a musician and you really want to make music, you just get Melepene. You just get the power, and then you're good.
Yeah, right? But that's actually not about music. It's about using music as like an enchantment power.
Right. What I would do in that hypothetical situation with that interesting character is I would basically present, because we're in the South, we're in Savannah, we're in Georgia, that it's like, if you want your music back, you can get it. You just have to do a ritual, at the crossroads, talk to the blues devil, but he can give you your music back.
I mean, technically, you just spend the blood point to do that, but that's not the same.
Right. No, this would be a mechanism of getting it back for real.
But the whole point is, like, you're playing a vampire character. It's all about angst,
Right.
You're feeling that angst that that everybody tells you how beautiful this is, but how it's bullshit.
Well, here's the thing, because it's not just angst. Angst as a raw stat is part of the reason why I don't go in for Wraith.
No, I mean, angst as in a psychological term.
Right, and I'm using it still in that way, because Wraith wants you to say just that ghosts have angst all the time. That's why they chose that as a mechanical contrivance. It's angst leading you to make poor and impulsive decisions to try and make yourself feel better. Mm-hmm. That's the nature of vampire, right?
Yeah.
And we can actually see expressions of this. It's why Taquanchi doesn't quite work and Byron does, which is not me saying that I'm better. It's me saying just comparison in contrast. Taquanchi wants to have angst, but is unwilling to make bad decisions or impulsive decisions to see that angst resolved, right? Byron is playing his sire's playbook, right? And he's presumably been playing that playbook for 40 years. And he's so deep in his sire's playbook, he can't even put together he's doing it. Right? He is a man trapped in his own legend. And all he can do is play forward, and it's going to get people killed.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe, Larry, that we're not all coming home from Carthage today.
We're gonna solve that. I mean, there's always the other option that the you that we were encountering is a version of you who left before we got the opportunity to go to Carthage with you.
Right. Well, but by the same token, so I was laying out the source of people's angst. Because because I want to be very clear. I don't think Nick has angst. If Nick has an angst, feel free to let me know. But I do think that Nick is also the kind of person that's like, you're going to get people killed because you honestly think you can weasel your way out of anything.
I mean, it has worked for him up until this point.
It's very Tremere flavored.
The thing about Nick as a character is, he's making deals. There's always an option, and the one time he got into a combat, it nearly. Well, let me rephrase that. The one time he got into a serious combat, he almost got destroyed.
It's true. I was there.
But that didn't stop him from getting back on the horse to accomplish his goals, gain power, advance himself, and advance his interests.
I mean, I understand why he's doing it. By his own description, he said this was an introductory game. He's playing with some kid gloves because we have a kid. But quite frankly, there are so many places where Owen has pulled back from extremity.
Oh yeah.
Where I would have been like, oh yeah, no, let's get our faces right in this problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One of which being that it's not even that Nick is thinks he can talk his way out of anything, which he certainly does. It's that Nick has not met the person that is the immovable object that will not be changed.
I mean, technically he did, but that was Tremere, and he's like going, "Oh, you want me to work for you? Yes, boss, absolutely."
Yeah, that's not what I mean. What I mean is like, obviously we don't like Van Meter for the very real reason that, hey, guess what? Our vampires who are monsters and do awful things don't like racists because racism is an unnecessary level of douchebaggery.
Yeah, and the thing for Nick is Nick used to be a revenant,
but
so he has uncomfortable feelings about slavery.
Right. But the thing is that I don't actually believe any of our antagonists, except for maybe Moloch, and even then Moloch's trying to soft sell, has stepped forward and been like, I'm the bad guy. I'm going to do bad things.
I mean,
and you're not going to be able to stop me. Right, but that's just it. Like, Van Meter has gone background, and we more or less, it's not that we fear Van Meter, it's that we don't like Van Meter.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of view Van Meter with a totally appropriate level of mockery. To make a comparison, we don't think of Van Meter in the same breath that we think about Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Django Unchained.
Mm-hmm.
Because that motherfucker, we were glad to watch him die.
Yeah.
But if we don't actually get Van Meter, we just go like, yeah. A worm eluded capture. We'll get him again next time.
So we had a good show on that. I want to end the show on
before we switch subjects. I want to point out our feelings about V6 are so strong. We'd rather talk about the V5 game we're actually in and having fun than talk about V6.
Absolutely. But before we wrap, Joe's real life is bad right now. It's not bueno. So the big question is at what point is Joe going to have to say we're going to have to turn the lights off in the church for a little while?
Well, remember, we might be getting an Ayrton back because they're getting a new potato.
Yes, did see that, but so the question is, when would Joe know?
So the thing of it is that I have a certain amount of money in my back pocket that will cover the first half of this month. I want to say the first half. I mean, I'm going to be able to keep the electricity and the water on because the rent's already paid. Right? Probably pay all of my debt outstanding. Not absolve it, but I can make the due payment. I have some friends who have offered to help me float the way, which will probably keep my internet on this month.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have not resolved it by the end of this month, I have to look into selling this house and move and finding a place to live. because at that point I will be broke, and the liquidity of the home is more important than the actual having the home.
Yeah. And
That's the kind of bad we're talking about, folks. So if you're listening and you want to help, there's a poor little crippled boy who could really use it.
So basically, if things go sideways, the end of August could be the end of the gospel as we know
it. Indeed.
We've been at this for 5 years.
Man, we really should have got those T-shirts rolling.
We should have. And what I have started to do to try to get people from the main YouTube channel over is I'm posting some of the videos we have done on my YouTube channel on the main channel, saying like, "Hey, please come over here and watch the videos." So
I did actually see that. I also saw a post by Church in passing, and I immediately turned into a fanboy. I'm like, Papa Church, you're coming back from getting cigarettes? But then he never responded.
Yeah. Well, that's the show for this week, everybody. And good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Doot.